Thanks, Jon Calabria here to talk about Proctor Creek, where we re-envisioned a potential opportunity for the Hollywood Road stretch of the unnamed tributary that goes into Proctor Creek as part of the urban hydrology series. So I wanted to share some information that my graduate class worked on a couple of years ago. This is pre-COVID, so we have a handy picture of everyone together without masks. But in any case, I presented this at a couple of places and wanted to share it with everyone here regarding the urban hydrology component. So I teach a graduate ecological restoration class, and these are some of the students who participated. They're composed of planners and landscape architects, and they have now graduated from the College of Environment and Design at the University of Georgia. So this project was funded in part by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Office of Sustainability and Office of Service Learning. So in this project, which is called Proctor Creek, for those of you familiar with it, it's located in Metro Atlanta. It's kind of on the western side of Atlanta, and you can see where I'm circling on the left-hand side of your screen, the Proctor Creek watershed. And then our site was a small little reach within that of Terrell Creek that then goes into the Proctor Creek, and our restoration occurred on Hollywood Road, or adjacent to Hollywood Road. And the downtown Atlanta is located east of the site over here. So there's a lot of interest and focus on Proctor Creek, and we were brought in as one of the entities to follow some of the Corps' reporting and take a look at how to integrate some of the urban hydrology with some of the community components. So the characterization component of the project was interesting. We were able to go in and look at the site, which is center of your screen, circling with the cursor. And you can tell it's a pretty high energy system. It comes off some bedrock, goes underneath Hollywood Road, and then splays out between Hollywood Road and the cemetery. In this area, it's able to be loosely reconnected with its floodplain and drop a lot of its sediment load, as you can see. There's obvious issues with flooding and some other things. And then the opportunity is to come in and figure out what are some ways that we could improve the aesthetics, increase and improve habitat and water quality, and do it within a way that might make it more acceptable to the community. So here we have the opportunity to go on the tail end of the aquatic ecosystem restoration report that the United States Army Corps of Engineers produced out of the Mobile district. And they created a ecological model to prioritize where restoration might occur. So there's several reaches of the Proctor Creek and its tributaries. And this particular project focuses on some of the physical stream characterization characters to stabilize the bank, remove invasive plants, and replant with riparian, with native plants in the riparian zone. So I asked students to look at some of these challenges, and we tried to figure out what are some of the issues that were driving some of the problems in this area, and why does that matter? What is so important about this, and what are we going to do about it? So here's Sarah Hutchison's What, Now What, So What reflection. And the Corps provided a plan that was the guiding armature of what could be done that I'll outline. And then the class thought of some ways to improve some of those areas. So of course, we're trying to address the urban stream syndrome, and there's connectivity issues, floodplain access issues, and the riparian vegetation that's been influenced by some of the land use, as well as some of the aggressive exotics that have taken hold in that area. So students were able to think about what are some of the issues, whether it's mold from homes that was unsatisfactory, of course, to folks who live there. And then what are some things that could be done in the stream itself? So the core plan envisioned some things that I'll highlight, and then we added to those some ideas borrowing from some natural channel design elements to try to promote our urban hydrology. So whether those were root wads or invasive species removal, and then replanting or cross veins, or thinking about ways to reassociate the stream with the floodplain. These are all things that were fair game, as well as wetland creation for the students to think about as they thought about how we could enhance the Corps of Engineers plans. So basically a two-step process: go out to the site, and we were able to meet with Derek Hoddick and another member of the Proctor Creek Stewardship Council, and they were able to take us around, show us some of the watershed conditions, as well as think through what are some things that we could do on site that could reconnect the community to the area that we were focusing on, the reach of Terrell Creek. So basically, how do we think about a wetland park design? And students were asked to go and look at other precedent case studies within Atlanta and some other areas to get their design juices flowing. And here's the site. So the first part was a visual analysis. There's a cemetery on one side, Hollywood Road on the other, and then this is where the stream is in the corridor. There's some nice hardwood forested areas, and then the stream comes off of some bedrock, goes underneath the Hollywood Road Bridge, and then splays out into the terrace and a little bit of floodplain, and then continues down until its confluence with Proctor Creek. So this is referred to as Restoration TC02. And here you can see the stream condition, as some of the pictures show, of a lot of kudzu and a lot of sand, meaning some high energy system. And a lot of that sand is starting to slow and spread out as energy is dissipated. And then you can see Hollywood Road, which is fairly busy and does not have any sidewalks on, or does not have sidewalks on both sides, just one side for a small stretch. So some of the restoration plan included thinking about controlling invasive species and then replanting indigenous or native species that are appropriate to the area. And then also creating some off-channel wetlands. So if there's an opportunity to carve off some of the higher flows and treat that through a wetland that is reminiscent of valley toe wetland, which you might find in some of the floodplain conditions in the Piedmont. And that was the objective with creating a wetland. It's kind of an off-channel wetland. There's a splitter envisioned by the Corps after the water makes it through a bend, and then it goes into several level spreaders and some other components the Corps envisioned. So the Corps talked about putting in this kind of wetland, creating this inundated area, and then getting water there through some ditching. They were thinking about using berms and revetments to help control some of the water flow. So there's opportunities to do some in-channel shaping. Here's some calls for heavier armoring to resist some of the excessive erosion into the channel and get it into the diversion ditch. There's also a need for a staging area, which would be at the toe of the cemetery for the material, as well as off of Hollywood Road. So there might be ways to repurpose some of those. So as far as the existing conditions, you can see that for this rehabilitation project, we wanted to address a couple of concerns that were outlined already, thinking about some of the aggressive exotic vegetation, and then what are some things we could do to aesthetically improve that area, perhaps create a structure that could be used by nearby residents or classes, and then create a boardwalk system to get people more in tune with what's going on. So here's the USACE design, and here you can see the construction documents. They're taking it to 95% construction documents, probably as we speak. And then there's opportunities to embellish the plan and take it a little further with in-stream structures and thinking about some of the wetland design. So here we have the core plan that the students took and embellished with some level spreaders, in-stream structures, and some other opportunities for engagement with the structure that could lead to some interpretation, as well as a boardwalk and path system to help get folks to locomote through the site. So here's the proposal starting at the upstream end for where the stream comes under Hollywood Road, is to take it into the channel that the Corps envisions, which is basically an armored channel to minimize some of the excessive erosion, then do some bar shaping of the existing channel. And at that point, there would be a diversion structure with some in-stream structures to help divert the water into a ditch section to eventually take some of that into this wetland area that's reminiscent of a valley toe wetland. And then a lot of the water would stay in the main stream channel, go through a variety of in-stream structures that could be viewed by the proposed pavilion that would have restrooms, as well as some deck area, and then think about how to move through the site and see various interpretive areas to demonstrate some of the things that are going on in the site. So to graphically illustrate the first section of the site, this is section AA, so that cuts across this part of the upper reach of the project area, was to think about from looking at the road and then moving over, was to think about an elevated pavilion that could look out onto the riparian area and stream corridor, look across and down onto the constructed wetlands and over to an emergent aquatic shelf and into where you can see the riparian forest picks up with the walking trail. So that was one of the things, one of the sections that the students envisioned to try to get people more closely associated with the structures and the streams. Here's the second section. And again, the idea was the wetlands would be a little perched on account of the channel feeding it. And then we envisioned some in-stream structures that could be visible from the walking trail and the elevated boardwalk as it snakes through the area with interpretive areas. So there'd be a lot of opportunities to demonstrate some things to enhance some of the urban hydrology by reassociating the stream with its floodplain, recreating a constructed wetland or stormwater wetland, depending on how you wanted to look at that, but basically reminiscent of the valley toe wetland, and then created some walking trails and boardwalks for the interpretive components that tie into the existing mature forest, so we could create some greater connectivity in this area. So that's what students envisioned, and these have been shared with the folks at the Corps of Engineers, and they are in the process of creating construction documents for this and other areas that you'll be on the lookout for. So thank you very much.